Good evening. Welcome to the July 3rd update on Tropical Storm Elsa here located south of Haiti. As always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding Elsa, please refer to the National Weather Service for your local area and the National Hurricane Center and your local officials for all the latest information regarding this system and your area. Well, as you can see here, Tropical Storm Elsa is a rather small system this evening, and it is not doing particularly well here. We have essentially some blobby convection here that has developed to the east of the lower level circulation, and you can actually see a semblance of a mid-level circulation in this region. And that indicates that the system is rather decoupled this evening and has been trying to fire convection a little closer to the lower level circulation so that it can stack a mid-level circulation on top of it. It is doing its best, but it is currently not succeeding in a quick manner here. So we're essentially looking at a struggling tropical storm here. It still has winds of 70 miles per hour, and this is still definitely a strong tropical storm and something to be talking about and very noteworthy. Obviously, this is no Claudette, where it made landfall as at a 45 mile per hour tropical storm. But regardless, here is what we're going to be talking about today. So we have Elsa here, the lower level circulation now to the south of the Tiburon Peninsula here, and you have a very small area of atmosphere that this is moving. You can see here that this is really all the atmosphere that it has command over, because if we go to the south of the circulation even, you still have flow out of the east that is to the south of the system, and that indicates that this does not have a whole lot of inflow. What this essentially has command over is just this mass of moisture here. And this is not a very large system. This has not been able to pull any inflow from the Eastern Caribbean and been able to really wrap around that convection and develop banding. And essentially we're dealing with a blob here. And so banding is going to be very difficult for this to develop, and it may struggle to redevelop a core due to this very reason, because of how the physics of the storm are right now, and the state of the system overall is not very healthy. And if it is able to wrap this convection up sheer, maybe then it would have an inner core, but due to the fact that the surface circulation is so small and has so little influence, it would be very difficult for the system to achieve that. But if it is able to develop an inner core, then maybe it would be able to intensify some, maybe back into a hurricane, and possibly a slightly stronger hurricane here, maybe a Category 1, a high-end Cat 1 at best. But anyway, this would not be something that is insane here that we were thinking would happen a couple days ago, back when this was still a hurricane and rapidly intensifying hurricane, crashing into St. Vincent here. So if we look at the water vapor imagery, you can see that the upper level environment here is very favorable. You have outflow expanding out of all quadrants here of the system. You have just excellent upper level environment here for this system. It's actually rather ridiculous for this time of year. Remember, it is only July 3rd. We shouldn't really be having a hurricane or tropical storm of any intensity tracking through the heart of the Caribbean here. So yeah, this is a system that is very well ventilated right now, and so it does support convection to continue to fire and possibly be able to wrap around. And maybe this is all dependent on the storm's inner core processes, and it's really difficult to pin down inner core processes because they are so finicky and so mesoscale that it is rather difficult to really get a good grip on them. And that's why we have recon data and we have a plane going in there right now. It is currently somewhere around in here in the southeastern Bahamas. But if we look at the sea surface temperatures here, we can see why I was discussing the potential for intensification here, as this pool south of Cuba here is rather warm. And if it is able to avoid land, then yes, it would be able to intensify somewhat, and I would not rule out intensification that would be at a quicker pace because of how favorable the environment is around it and how favorable these sea surface temperatures are. But it all depends, once we start talking about Florida here, it all depends on where this exactly crosses, because if it crosses here, then it doesn't have as much time over water. But if it crosses in the isthmus region, then it has a lot more time over water and is able to track over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico for a much longer period of time. And these waters, while they are not as uniformly warm as the waters to the south of Cuba here, they are rather warm and are favorable for continued intensification of a tropical cyclone if a tropical cyclone were to go over this region. So, if you're in Florida, do keep your heads up here. This is not a slouch of a system, and if anything, you should be knowing that the system has been able to make wild jumps in intensity over the past couple of days, and so do be watching this closely and do be preparing for the worst if you live in this region, just because of that possibility that it could be a potentially organized system coming up into the Florida west coast here, anywhere in between the Keys and the Big Bend region here. This region right here does need to be watching this rather closely. And so, if we look at the National Hurricane Center forecast, you can see that there are already tropical storm watches up for the Keys, and these watches will likely extend up the coast tomorrow. And as you can see, they do not expect this system to develop back into a hurricane right now, and that is due to the possibility of land interaction. If this is able to stay south of Cuba here, and this southern third of the track really, then we may see some changes in the forecast, and it also depends on how much the storm takes advantage of this environment here. So, anywhere between a strong tropical storm and maybe a minimal hurricane is possible here for the Florida East Coast. And for Cuba, well, it all depends on when exactly this makes landfall on Cuba. If it does indeed go to the south and west of the current forecast track, then you could probably expect something a little stronger heading into Cuba here. But if it does follow the forecast track, then this forecast track is pretty spot on in terms of intensity here. I would not expect anything above a strong tropical storm if this is going to clip the southeastern tip of Cuba here. And so, as we head into the weekend, or head into the beginning of the work week here, do be watching this rather closely if you live in Florida. This is the 3-day track, so this is by 2 p.m. Tuesday that we have our system here, and it is just off the coast of Florida, or it could be onshore depending on where it actually crosses. It could be offshore as well. So please do be watching this in Florida. Just because you're not under a tropical storm watch right now doesn't mean that you are free to kind of lays around here. You do need to be preparing for something that is potentially going to be a hurricane. It is rather small, so it will affect a small area, but where that exactly is not entirely sure yet. So if you are within this cone right now, if you're in this region, you do need to be preparing regardless of where exactly you are, and do be prepared for power outages and heavy rain and potentially surge if you live on the coast here, as this is going to come up and primarily provide rough weather for the entirety of the Florida Peninsula, really. And also be watching for flash flooding here, as a band could set up over an area and maybe be able to produce heavier rain. But generally speaking, this southern half of Florida here into the Big Bend region could see 3 to 6 inches of rain here. That is on the rainfall forecast at the WPC office, and NWS Miami and National Weather Service in Tampa could also are also really great sources for the Florida coast, and also in NWS Melbourne. Really just pay attention to your local weather office and pay attention to the National Hurricane Center for all the information regarding your area. They have storm surge graphics on the National Hurricane Center. Currently, they're only covering the Keys because those are the areas that are under watches, and they will extend those storm surge forecasts up here into the western Florida coast as the storm draws near. Anyway, I feel like I've talked enough about the system. Please do stay safe, and please do stay alert. This is coming faster than you think it will be. It will be here probably by Tuesday, and effects could start as early as Monday evening here if you live on the Florida West Coast here. So do be watching this and be prepared for this when it comes up to you. That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching.